Hello and welcome to Insights in Action with Orange 142, where we interview agency leaders and business owners to uncover the journeys, strategies, and insights that drive their success. At Orange 142, we're all about transforming brand stories into impactful digital experiences through innovative media and marketing solutions. And today, I'm very lucky to be joined by Michael of Big Fin SEO. How's it going, Michael?
Real good. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on. And I would love to just start this off by learning a little bit more about you and your background and a little bit more about Big Fin SEO.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've told this story many times. I actually told this on a TED stage because it was important to share my journey because I know that so many other people have had a similar journey or are thinking about taking this journey of ultimately starting their own business, becoming an agency owner. And the story really isn't all that unique in the sense that I was a corporate marketing guy. I loved marketing. I thought I could make a difference. And I started working for these large corporations. And pretty quickly, you discover that you're just a cog in the wheel. And you could be the most creative guy in the world or a person in the world. But at the end of the day, it's all dollars and cents. And it's really all about the ability to appeal to others, much like Orange 142 does, right? We talk about story and creating compelling stories to engage people, move them through that purchase decision funnel. And people have opinions. And because of that, I found it very difficult over time to really make a true impact. So I started to do some things on the side. I would dabble here, I would dabble there, I would help people with their marketing. And I became really curious about search engine optimization. I don't really know why, other than at the time I was experimenting with some websites. I couldn't get them to rank on Google. And I got really curious about, okay, how can I crack the code? How can I get my website to rank? How can I get others' websites to rank? And one thing led to another. And ultimately, I parted ways with the corporate market space and started doing my own thing. And what I found out was that, especially in the early days of Google, there really was a defined formula for how to improve your rankings and how to build your online exposure. And although that's true today, it's continuing to evolve. One of the things that we as an agency are really focused on is geo right now, generative engine optimization, which is a little different than SEO. And really all this means is getting your company, your brand, your story out through ChatGPT and Perplexity, Bard, all these AIs that people are starting to use in place of search. And to me, it's fascinating because this really only happens every 10 or 12 years where we go through a major sea change in the SEO landscape. And although, especially from an organic perspective, things are changing multiple times a year, like the big, massive changes only happen every so often. And we're right at the precipice of a major change. So, Big Fin SEO, we're predominantly an SEO agency. We focus on search, but we're more than that. We really focus on building strong online brands through digital marketing, primarily with SEO, paid search, and website development. But we're also at the forefront of some of the things that are changing in our landscape, like the use of AI.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was actually one reason I was really excited to have you on was because I wanted to get your thoughts on GEO because that's something that we also started doing, obviously. And it's really interesting because you don't see this change, like you're saying, you don't really, especially in something like SEO, you don't see this large change happen very often. Of course, you've
Mhm.
got to deal with these algorithm changes that Google does like every single day or whatever it is, but this
It
is
feels that way.
yeah. But this is massive. And you guys made this shift. What are you seeing in the market right now? Are you seeing that people don't know about GEO and they want to know? Are you seeing, is there, well, like, I'm curious about what that supply demand
Mhm.
curve looks like. Or are people like,
Mhm.
wow, I need to be on this right now and I just don't know how to do it, like how in the early days of SEO was?
Yeah, I like to make the comparison to Bitcoin and blockchain. Bitcoin's been around a long time,
Yeah.
right? And some people are just really, quote unquote, finding out about it now. And
Yeah.
it's, wait, how is that even possible? But to be honest with you, unless you're in it, unless you're focused on it, How would you know? It's not something that comes up in daily conversation for a lot of people. And I think the same is happening right now with geo, this generative engine optimization. People use ChatGPT, but some use it a lot more than others, especially us in the agency world or content development world. We're going to know more about AI than a lot of people. But then there are others who just really, they don't use it in their day to day. There's really no practical purpose for it. And as a result, they really haven't even heard of geo or know what it is. So I feel that it is really up to us as the pioneers who are helping clients tell their brand story, gain online visibility, improve their online reputation, to just be aware of the importance of education and saying to them, hey, when you do your day to day, you may operate in this way, but did you know that people are also using ChatGPT and Perplexity to answer a lot of the common queries they used to go to Google with or for? And I think more and more people are going to learn about it, just like I said, like with Bitcoin, especially as it goes up in price. I think as ChatGPT becomes more integrated into the workflow of people's day jobs and freelance jobs and side jobs and everything else, it's going to be impossible to ignore.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and that's a really good point. And even in our outreach, I'm noticing that we're having to put this, like when I do outreach, I'm like, hey, here's what GEO is, and here's I need to let you know that people are searching for your brand or for your company on ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever it is. And you have to have that extra line up there and even include, like for me, I'm like including search. Hey, people are like typing up these super long search terms about, hey, what's the best personal injury firm near me? I just got into an accident or whatever it is. And so
Yes.
you have to have that like extra line of people, this is a problem and this is how we're helping you solve it. And I think that's how you, like to your point, you have to attack this right now because you're right, not a lot of people know about it yet, but they will.
And I do think that there is an early mover advantage here. The
Mm.
companies, the agencies, the people who are creating some education and awareness around this are also the people who I think can influence it in a positive way. One of the big challenges with AI is that people feel that it's just taking all information sources equally and it's not really accurate all the time, so on and so forth. But I think that the people, especially in the agency world, who are attuned to what's happening and how it's evolving, can actually influence that. I was on a conversation yesterday with someone who's really well known with Wikipedia, and Wikipedia is being used as a resource. And I really challenged that for
Yeah.
ChatGPT primarily for a lot of the citations, because I said, really, Wikipedia has been around forever. It's not as effectively managed as it used to be, so on and so forth. But this person raised a really good point, and he said, but the difference is Wikipedia works on third party mentions. So it's not your website. It's not a press release that you put out about your company. It's independent. We'll take that with a grain of salt, but it's independent news coverage or coverage across the World Wide Web. And there are not a lot of sources that actually purport to do that. So whether you believe in that or not is almost irrelevant. It's more about identifying how the engines are really producing answers to a lot of these common questions and either being part of the solution or part of the problem, either producing value added content that the engines will consume just as
Mhm.
consumers will consume, or back in the day of old with SEO, right? It was garbage content, garbage links, all of this nonsense to try to fool the system. And I
Yeah.
think we need to do it right this time. We need to make
Yeah.
sure that we're creating value for our clients and for their customers. And if we do that, I think we'll be rewarded within these AI chatbots and other things that rely on the information to really produce a correct answer to those who are searching.
Yeah, for sure. And I really hope that these platforms like OpenAI and Claude and that they really have some safeguards in place from like these black hat methods that are hope
Mhm.
unfortunately inevitably probably going to happen. And I think that there needs to be because it's so much more AI is so much more influential already, and it will continue to grow to be. And so to have that like the discernment of the platform of hey, this is good information, this is somebody that's just trying to trick me so that they can place
Hmm.
higher in my algorithm or whatever it is. I
Right.
think that definitely needs to happen.
Yeah, I do too. And there's definitely room for ethical leadership here and doing the right thing. And not everybody will. We know this, like historically, it's human nature. But I do feel that those tools like OpenAI will
Mm.
get better, much like Google has over the years
Mm.
of weeding out the garbage.
For sure.
Google went through numerous big, going back to the Penguin update, which was like 10 years ago, of going in and saying people are trying to rig the system. They're trying to buy links. They're trying to create inaccurate content or whatever it is. So they will figure it out. The question is, how rapidly will that happen? And are the seeds being placed in the right way so that as this grows, so do those frameworks and limits on how much these things can be manipulated. And I do agree. I think it's important and it's important to get ahead of, or we might just be repeating the past here, which we obviously don't want to do.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I want to talk about going back to SEO as well, Michael. What is a common misconception that businesses have about SEO that you wish you could clear up?
Mm. Yeah, I think that there's really a difference between SEO that's done correctly and traditional quote unquote SEO. I just feel like there's a lack of true depth of understanding in terms of what's required to improve rankings in search results. And again, part of this is just as an industry, it's been challenged because in the past, people would just, there'd be a race to the bottom. Why pay $2,000 a month, $2,500 a month for an SEO firm when we can do it for $100? And there were a lot of business owners who said, you know what, I'll do it for $100. Either I don't have the money or I just don't see why this is so complicated. I'll just put a bunch of keywords on my website. But unfortunately, in order to rank and in order to rank for the keywords you're targeting for your audience, it has become so incredibly competitive that the war is won in inches, not yards. And that means doing a lot of things right consistently over time, producing well optimized, engaging content, building authority, creating new assets on a regular basis. From a link perspective, earning links, not just quote unquote acquiring links, and doing all of these things that we as an agency do and have done for many years. And we're always up against that uneducated consumer who says, oh, I'll just go to Upwork and I'll buy 50,000 links or whatever they're selling this week, which unfortunately is going to hurt the business and they could get banned and it could impact their livelihood. So there's a real fine line. And I think the big misconception that we're always up against is like, how hard can this be? SEO is just, and again, it depends on that person's lens, but sometimes they think it's just updating a homepage or putting a couple links to their website or buying one of these services that just unfortunately is never going to get them where they want to be. So I think the more educated people are, the better they are because they see the not only the way to make an impact, but to do that over an extended period of time. And it really aligns with their brand value.
Yeah.
So the companies, I'm sure you see this with your clients, the clients that really want to invest in their brand in terms of the brand story, the assets that are going to help shape their brand over the long term and create value for clients, they're our best customers because they understand the value of creating value added content, of doing things intentionally, of just crossing the T's and dotting the I's. And those are the clients we like to work with because we work with them in parallel to really create impactful results.
Yeah, for sure. Wow, you said so many really good things there that I want to dive into. You're right. I think too many people think first of all, the inherent value of an agency like yours is the fact that like why people need you is because you guys do that dirty work of going in and learning what the algorithm, how it's always changing and how it's impacting businesses and stuff. If a company was to pay somebody to do that year round, that's easily in today's market, that's an easily like a six-figure job. And so to have somebody like you go in and do that, I think is huge. And then that's where you come in, right? And I think that SEO for sure, understanding that it's a slow burn. It's one of those
Mhm.
things where it takes a while. And you mentioned words that you said like consistency and done over time and all of that stuff. And I think that's so true. It's just one of those things you have to keep doing. And then you're able to really see the fruits of all of that work a few months down the line, sometimes quicker. And I think I like that things are shifting now so that there is more of this back in the like the 50s, 60s, 70s, even, or probably even up to the last 10, 15 years, maybe. Like all the bigger companies were playing a different game than the smaller companies. Everybody, like Coca-Cola, these types of big companies, were all focused on brand. And I think now more and more people are starting to realize how important brand is. And to your point, talking about that, about how every little thing matters when it comes to like your online presence, how you approach with customers and everything. I think now more and more people are a little bit more like privy to that. Oh man, we have to invest in all of these channels because this makes up our brand.
Yeah, and look, we know that being multimodal, being everywhere your client is just smart business. And there are ways to do it efficiently. You can take one really good piece of content, slice it a million different ways, and distribute it across a lot of different channels. But if you don't have agencies like ours or a strong internal team who can really think through the strategy, you might just be burning through time and money
Yeah.
with nothing to really show for it. So I think that there are a lot of companies out there today who really just want to jump to execution, which is fine, great, more power to them. But it's a lot of work, no matter who's doing it, whether it's an internal team, an agency, a freelancer. So you just want to make sure that you spend a lot of time really not just focusing on the strategy, but the vision. Where is it that you want to end up? Because the strategy could change and often does 5, 6, 7 times until you get there. But there are a lot of brands that we've worked with who want to change the vision if the strategy is not working. And it's, wait a second, we've got a lot of dials in our arsenal that we can tweak, right?
Mhm.
It's maybe it's not that your website isn't working, maybe it's
Mhm.
just your landing page isn't converting well. So let's dial in on that instead of saying we need a brand new website. So I think that we do have more tools than ever, and I think your point is a good one. Everyone's playing the same game now. Coca-Cola's got to be on social, just like John's landscaping company
Uh,
has to be on social, right?
yeah.
So they may not have the same budget, they may not be able to advertise the same way, but organically, they both need to appear in the same place. And all of that really feeds into what's the story they're telling, what meaning do they attach to their brand, and how can that benefit consumers?
Yeah, for sure. All good points. Michael, this has been so great. Thank you so much for being on here. Where can people learn more about you? Where can people learn more about Big Fin?
I definitely encourage people to check out bigfinseo.com. You'll find out all about the agency there, the types of clients we work with, and the impact we can make. And I'm available anywhere and everywhere on the internet. That's the cool thing about being an SEO. Just go ahead, type my name. Let's connect on LinkedIn. And happy to talk to anyone about branding or SEO or digital marketing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. Thanks for being on.
Thank you.